Hi, girls, and welcome back to Self Care Black Girls, a podcast where we relax, sip tea, and chat about bettering ourselves as black girls. I'm BB, and I'll be helping guide you to make better choices in your daily lives. So, welcome back to another episode. Today's episode, I'm going to be giving you all five tips, on how to balance life and school. I guess these could apply to work and school. I'm not sure. It just depends on what your job schedule is like. So, without any further ado, I don't think I have anything else to say. If you missed the announcement in last week's episode, then I'll say it here once again. But if you want a more in-depth explanation, go listen to the last episode. I'm no longer doing the blog portion of my podcast, and if you listen to the outro reel, you'll hear that the blog is no longer in there. And if you click the link tree on my Instagram, I'm sorry I'm moving so much, the link to the blog is no longer there either. So yeah, that's that. So, without further ado, the episode. So, the first tip that I have for you all, as far as balancing life and school is concerned, is to create a schedule and stick to it. Yes, I know this can be hard in the beginning, especially if your days aren't consistent and each day is something new, but try to get like the gist of what you have to do. Like, for example, say some days you have errands, some days you don't. Well, think about the time that you usually go out to do your errands, and block that time off as errand time. So if you have errands that day, then you'll know to go out during those times. And if you don't, then you'll know that you have that time to either relax or you could do something else. Create, just, go about, a day or two and look at what all you have to do and kind of build your schedule around that, if that makes sense. And stick to it. Don't just create it and then like a week later you fall off of it. Remember that you created this to be built around your life, inconsistent or consistent. So, try to stick to it, hold yourself accountable. If something doesn't get done, look at what the task was, look at when you were supposed to get done, and adjust and keep it pushing. Don't stop sticking to your schedule because something didn't get done. Yeah. Just, adjust it, give yourself more or less time depending on what needed to get done, and try again the next day. So, yeah. The next tip would be to minimize spontaneous adventures and trips. And this goes back onto what I was just saying. Don't have something to do that, okay, and I guess this is spontaneous, it's not really planned, but don't try to do something that is not going to fit within your schedule. Like, say you have a bunch of errands to do that day, but you wake up that day saying, hey, I want to go to the movies. Don't put off your errands just because you want to go to the movies. Get those errands done. And if you have enough time after that to, sit through a whole entire movie, then by all means do it. I'm not telling you not to do it. But if you've got work to do or errands to run and you don't foresee yourself having time to watch that movie or do whatever the other activity is, you're just not going to get to do it. Try again tomorrow, or look throughout your schedule and find a day that you are going to have time. Or if you want to do it that bad, plan it, put it in your schedule, put it down as a task that you want to get done. So be flexible with yourself, but not spontaneous flexible, if that makes sense. The next thing that you could do to help better balance life in school or work, depending on what you do, is to put the important task first. This is probably the most important of the tips that I'm going to give you all today. Don't hold off the most important things that you have to do to the very end of the day, because chances are they aren't going to get done unless you're very disciplined about your work. Chances are you're not going to get those done. They probably won't get done. They'll get pushed on till tomorrow. And if you keep holding them, excuse me, if you keep holding them off, they're going to get pushed back, maybe days, weeks, months, depending on the deadline that you have for it. So do not put important tasks off to the end. Knock them out in the morning while your mind is still fresh and get them done. It's better to work and push through it than to have to procrastinate it and now you really don't want to do it, but if it has a deadline, now you have to. So important things first. Things that you can be a little bit more lenient with, towards the middle of the day, end of the day, evening, that part of the time of the day. Next is to not spend too much time on anything. Don't sit there, like, for example, if you have a project and you're struggling, don't sit there and just stare at the screen for 20 minutes. That's wasting time. If you don't understand the project, you could have spent some of that time emailing the professor or emailing somebody, and then the other part of the time doing something else while you wait for a response or an epiphany. So do not spend too much time on anything that you have to do. Set a timer. If it's something that you're expecting to take a while, set a timer for 2 hours. What's not done in that 2 hours, that's it for the day. If it's not due that day, that's it for the day. You can save. You can do it again tomorrow. Set a timer for 2 hours the next day and get more of the work done. So, and it's completely up to you to decide what is considered too much time. Like, for example, reading a chapter book. If you have to read one of the chapters and the chapter is like 20 pages long, unless you're like a very, very, very slow reader, I wouldn't spend any more than like an hour and 15 minutes at most trying to read 20 pages. Excuse me. And that also depends on the font of the text. So for me, 12-point font in a book would take me about an hour and 15 minutes because I read kind of slow. But, you kind of have to get a feel for, how long it takes you to do certain tasks. So do not spend any more time on a task than you have to, because it's going to put you off in the end and you could end up procrastinating important tasks, which I just said is not something you want to do. So yeah. And then the last tip that I have for you all is, if something's holding you up, move on and come back. And I mentioned this earlier in this episode, and I also think I mentioned this briefly in the last episode as well. If you're stuck on something, don't sit there and stare at the screen or at the notebook or your phone for 20 minutes doing nothing, because now you're wasting time, and we don't want to waste time. We want to get things done. If you're struggling over it that much, and you need help with it, email somebody, and while you're waiting for that response, go do something else and come back. Who knows? One or two things could happen in that time. You could either get a response from whoever you emailed, or you could get, you could realize what you were doing wrong or realize what you need to do. And then that way, when you come back to it, then you'll be able to get it done, and now you're not stressing about it anymore. So if something's holding you up, move on, come back. It won't be the end of the world, I promise. Just go work on something else, take a nap, take a break, and come back. But that is the 5 tips that I have for you all to help you balance your school life, your work life, and make sure you're getting everything that you need to get done. I hope this all will be helpful to you all. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all next week. Bye. Thank you all so much for listening this week. If you have any questions, comments, stories, or tips, and you'd like to share them with me, email me at selfcarebgirl@gmail.com. If you'd like to help other people find this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes to help get the word out. If iTunes isn't your preferred method of listening, you can also find us on Spotify, YouTube, and many more streaming platforms. If you'd like to interact with other listeners or keep up with announcements and giveaways, you should follow me on Instagram at Selfcare Black Girls. Join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/selfcareblackgirls, or follow me on Twitter at selfcarebgirls. don't forget you all still have the option to donate by either visiting my Patreon link or my merch link in the bio of my Instagram and Twitter. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all next week. Bye.